Can you guys hear me? Oh, there we go. Hello, everybody. I'm Lucas Matney. I'm an editor at TechCrunch. Very psyched to have Kimbal here with us. Is this your first ETH Denver?
It is my first ETH Denver, and I got to say, it has been a wonderful day. You guys are awesome.
So, how are you involved with crypto?
I am not involved in crypto. If everyone thinks what I'm doing is crypto. Actually, it's Web3. We do not touch cryptocurrency. So it's and of course, Buffy, they, them. Buffy might be asking a question.
So in the Web3 world, tell me a little bit about this DAO that you're working on.
Sure. So who here has heard of Big Green DAO? Cool, a couple people. So what I find fascinating about Web3 is this concept of decentralizing authority. And that is just if you think about capitalism, where you have issues around inequality otherwise, when you think about communism and you have issues around just creating wealth, this is a new governance structure. It's decentralized, autonomous organization. I am absolutely fascinated by it. So I started to look at how could you apply philanthropic decisions to using Web3. And what I did, I don't need to make money, so I'm not here to speculate on any tokens or coins or anything. And frankly, I don't think most of you are either. I've really enjoyed my conversations today with you guys. The theme of this conference is biddle, not hodl. You're allowed to hodl, don't worry, but biddle is what you want. You want to be building. And you guys are all builders. And so what I love about Web3, when we make philanthropic decisions, we're working out of a home office in Boulder, or if you're the Gates Foundation, you're in Seattle. And you're really, I consider myself an ivory tower philanthropist. I live in a beautiful place. I try very hard to give money away. And I don't really know how well it does. And when I saw this concept of a DAO, I wondered if we could put grant-making power into the hands of the front lines. My philanthropy is focused on food justice. So we would give voting power to nonprofits working in food justice, and they would have a treasury. I put $1 million in, and I said $50,000 each to each DAO committee member, and I said, you guys now have to decide who should get another round of funding. So they have a $200,000 to $300,000 range to give away this quarter. But the catch is, they have to give a voting power away with every donation. So last quarter, I chose the first 6. This quarter, they'll choose the next probably 12, and it'll become an 18-person DAO. Then you'll have 18 nonprofits choosing the next round, which might turn into a 40-person DAO. And eventually, we'll start bringing donors in as voters as well. But it's progressively decentralizing. And I believe we will have not just a better way of deciding who should get a grant, but we will have a decentralized way of monitoring how well those people use those funds. So that people, if we're giving money to someone in Detroit, they're going to be members of the DAO that live in Detroit and will be able to, over Discord, share their thoughts. It's really about decentralizing power, and I'm very excited about it.
So I think, as far as donors, like one of the first questions a lot of people might have, especially being involved with sustainability, is just, maybe some of the initial donors will have misgivings about the blockchain and kind of sustainability with, the Ethereum or Bitcoin ecosystem. Bitcoin somewhat irrelevant with the DAO, but...
Sure. Well, I really do not agree with the environmental impact of crypto, but I love what it does. So we just got to figure out how to do it without the environmental impact, and it's already happening. I was proud to be able to tell Vitalik earlier that I put some ETH into stake for ETH2, and you got to put your money where your mouth is, and that's really the answer. Is we need to get this to be a low environmental impact. It's just not. It's technically we need to be done, but there are many other services, Algorand, Solana, Cardano. There are a lot of players out there will do it if Ethereum doesn't. But it's simply not an option. to have this environmental impact, and it should. I believe the term is sharding. The sharding should happen soon. And when it does, we won't have this problem.
So I guess for the folks who are kind of, getting involved with it early on, like, do you just say this is going to be not going to be an issue once, ETH2 or the consensus layer kind of comes around? Like, just get involved now?
Well, we do work on Polygon, so we're not subscribing to any environmental impact or gas fees. And it's Kevin Owaki told me to look at it, and it was the right call. We moved our voting. We used Snapshot on Polygon, and we feel pretty good about it. And but in terms of scaling, we would prefer it to be on layer 1.
Now, kind of switching gears a little bit. I mean, without going into any details that haven't been publicly talked about, I guess, or maybe, but like, Tesla has Bitcoin on its balance sheet. There are obviously more environmental concerns with that than maybe, a consensus layer Ethereum. Do you think that more companies are going to be investing in Ethereum down the road? Is that something you think they'd be interested in?
Sure. I mean, I think, first of all, when we invested in Bitcoin, we were very ignorant. We had no idea the environmental impact. We literally didn't know. We're like, this seems like a good store of value. It's a good way to just sort of diversify assets. And of course, it didn't take very long to get a million, I'm not kidding, probably a million messages telling us what we were doing to the environment. And of course, our company is about creating an alternative energy future. So we really were not informed enough when we made that decision. We don't necessarily regret it, but we are glad that things are moving towards in a more environmentally friendly direction.
So kind of switching gears back, I mean, talking about the future of philanthropy using DAOs, how do you feel about, like, you talked about it a little bit in the future, but like the voters who are actually the donors kind of getting a stake, like that's not something you're launching with. Why is that?
Well, we're treating this as an experiment, and I've been around the block enough to know what I don't know, and I don't know a lot. In this space, I don't know a lot. So we actually use the word experiment to say that after September 30th, we can undo everything and restart. We also, in that process, I just want to thank any of you guys who might be donors. We got 1,700 donors into Big Green DAO in the first month. We did not expect that, so thank you. When you have 1,700 donors and you said you were going to give them all voting tokens, but you have 6 nonprofits, that doesn't work. So we had to say, sorry, we'll get you your vote soon in some form, and we will figure out how to do that. But we are really trying to make sure the nonprofits have the strongest voice. The decentralized decision-making we're playing around with 2 different, possibly a DAO that would be like a Congress, that would be the donors, and the Senate, that would be the nonprofits. And it's quite beautiful to work on governance like this. I'm actually studying how the US government was formed, how the Constitution was written. And you're like, wow, this is really cool. Like, to be able to do that for a new entity, and DAOs do not sit in American law. They're supranational. So this could be worldwide if we want it to be, or when. People in China are translating the white paper. We had a request from India recently that we might translate it into one of those languages. And but it's an experiment. So we think that so far it's going extremely well. I'm very proud of the Big Green team for the amazing work they've done. This is totally new for every single person on the team. No one on the team knew what, maybe we knew what crypto was, but none of us knew what Web3 was, or blockchains, or DAOs 9 months ago. And I will say it has been a beautiful, warm welcome. You guys are very much about community building. I think it's actually your superpower. The community building in Web3 is not talked about.
So, getting involved with the DAO experiment first, what do you want to do next in crypto? Are you starting a crypto startup? What's next for you?
My life is really about philanthropy. I do have businesses I'm involved in. I'm very proud of those businesses. But for me, I love using Web3 in a way that can make the world a better place, that can help people who are donors understand how their money is being used, help nonprofits get funding in ways that are a little easier, a little bit more friendly to them. what people who don't know this, giving money away is actually very hard. And a simple example is, if you have one grant, and your grant is maybe $25,000, you might have 100 nonprofits applying for that. And every nonprofit who applies for that spends about 100 hours on that application. So you've got 10,000 work hours applying. And then when you receive the grants, you've got to have a team of people to review the grants. And that's another few hundred hours. So you're looking like 11,000 hours to review a $25,000 grant. It is the worst use of time you could possibly imagine. And if you just instead took away all the money that goes towards the administration on the nonprofit and the foundation side, you're going to be able to give away a lot more money. Of course, the DAO has to work. It has to actually deliver good results, which we'll find out, but I think it will. But you have no admin. We're intentionally keeping the DAO can change these rules, but oh, by the way, this is amazing about a DAO. I started the DAO, I'm the founder, and I have nothing, I have no control. I had to come to terms with the fact that a DAO is not command and control. I cannot tell them what to do. They've already changed the rules on me, and I don't even have a vote. So I think that's super cool. That's like super cool. Yeah, so where was I? Yeah, so I think that you take away that administration side, which is exhausting. And by the way, Big Green 501c3, building these beautiful gardens around the country, school gardens. We've worked in it for 10 years. I started it before I'd made my own wealth, so I was fundraising hardcore. And it's very hard. It's very hard to fundraise. Hopefully, with this process, by joining a DAO as a nonprofit, joining a community, building that community with other nonprofits, you can start to see collaboration amongst nonprofits, which also doesn't happen. Doesn't happen much. You get to see donors getting transparency, so they can see what's going on with their money. How beautiful is that? You give $1,000 and you know where it's going. In traditional Web 2 or anything in the past, it is a black hole. You have no idea where your money goes. And this is a lot of promise, but I do think this is what it's for. This is what Web 3 is about. It's about decentralization of power and transparency.
So Big Green DAO is kind of operating, you have a traditional nonprofit structure that's kind of loosely tied, what do you think the future is of just like purely on-chain, charitable giving DAOs that don't involve the 501c3?
Sure. Actually, the way Big Green DAO works today, if you want to send money to Big Green DAO, there's a wallet, it's public, you can do it. The DAO committee would have total control, multi-sig wallet. But because it's not an American structure, you do not get a tax deduction. So the reason why it goes through the 501c3 is then you get your tax deduction. The DAO gives the 501c3 instructions, and if Big Green is not doing what the DAO wants, the DAO could work with another nonprofit. But because of the tax law, you need what's called a fiscal conduit in tax law. You need to be able to give money to a 501c3 that somehow relates to whatever the DAO's doing, and then you get a tax deduction, which you should get. If you're a donor, you should get credit for that.
How concerned are you about the idea that these philanthropic DAOs could start up, I guess theoretically if they're more separate from the 501c3, but say like they get hijacked or something, and all of a sudden the people who have voting control don't share the same values as the people with the original. This might not be so much a problem with yours, but it's a thing that could happen.
I think that there are many ways to fail. This one could fail spectacularly, and I had to kind of be okay with that. Like fraud, hacking, I don't know, they take the money and go gamble in Vegas. I mean, literally, they could do whatever they want. And so far, I am so proud of the DAO committee that we formed. These are food justice warriors. They're taking it seriously. They know that if they do this right, they don't just change philanthropy for their own organization, but they might actually be a model for the entire country and maybe the world. It's really beautiful.
I guess being aware that things could, obviously go south, what kind of protections can you essentially build in, or, is that something you're interested in, or is that just going to make it more centralized?
So during the experimental phase, the money comes into the 501c3. The DAO provides instructions to the 501c3, and then we literally, I know this is going to sound painful, we literally write checks and we put them in the mail. It's the worst system in the world. We don't want to do that forever. I think we've had a few jokes. Why don't we use horses to ride them over, between the cities? So we do have to get on chain. We do have to, not have to, we should, and that's a major part of the benefit. But we do also need to make sure that we're very educated, that there's a very small chance of fraud. Hacking is a sport in Web3. And what I've heard is that even if you get hacked, they might even give the money back. They just want the credit for hacking. Yeah, I don't like that. For me, I want to baby steps and just appreciate this money is for these beautiful, powerful nonprofits to do really wonderful IRL things. Kids growing food in the soil. We believe at Big Green that growing food changes lives. It improves your nutrition security. You're not afraid of starving. You actually can grow. It improves your mental health. It gets you out into nature. It opens your eyes up to the weather volatility of climate change. Growing food changes lives. And Big Green DAO, that's our goal, is to deliver on that mission.
Looking towards a future where, more philanthropic organizations embrace this and hope that the good effects kind of trickle down to folks. I guess what ultimately do you kind of see as the consumer future for Web3 or just kind of consumer future for DAOs in general?
Well, I think that the philanthropic model that we're creating, or we'll work on, create together with a few other philanthropic DAOs and eventually get a model. I've definitely drunk the Kool-Aid. Just like all of you guys here, it's way better. I can't tell people who in the old, I know many of my friends who work in the old philanthropic model, they think I'm insane. They think I'm a Martian. I can barely even, they obviously cannot understand what I'm saying. And yet, when you see it work, which you guys, in whatever you're working on, you're seeing it work, and you might go to, I've got to tell you this story. So I'm old. I just want you to know, I look young, of course, but I'm old. Back in 1995, I did my first startup, and it was an internet startup, and my brother and I were building the yellow pages for the internet. We were building maps and door-to-door directions, and you could search for a business, and it could be right around the corner, and crazy things, magic tricks. And I remember being in a meeting with an old guy about my age, and my age now, and I talked to him about what we were doing, about the internet, and how we were going to replace the yellow pages. He was a yellow pages company, and he picked up this thick yellow pages book, and he threw it at me. I'm this 22-year-old kid. I'm like, what just happened? And he said, do you think that the internet will ever replace this? And I quietly walked out of the room. And I remember that very well, because it was not a good meeting for me. And so in this process of Web3, I just want to be a better old person.
So looking towards the future, but say this goes spectacularly well, doesn't blow up. You gave $1 million to the initial. I'm assuming that you're kind of working with some other organizations outside of DAOs that you're still giving to. I guess what would it take for you to just completely only give to DAO, philanthropic organizations?
Big Green is about a $10 million a year giving budget. $9 million goes to traditional grant making, which, by the way, we are very proud of, but I think it's going to move more to the Web3 side of things. And then we've also been able to raise a good amount of funds from the donor community. I don't know the answer. I think there's a role to play for traditional grant making. I think that it needs a lot of innovation, but there are experts in the field. So if you're, for example, doing scientific research and you want to raise money that way, it certainly needs innovation, but a DAO may not work as well, or maybe I'm sure in the room there's probably 5 people who have an idea on how to solve that exact problem. But I do think that Web3 will be a powerful part of the future, and I think that's it's okay that it lives in partnership with. I mean, we still have the email works, and we still have the telephone. I think you don't know this, but the Telegram still exists. So like you can still send a telegram if you want. So I think all of these things will coexist for quite a long time.
I guess as we're wrapping up here, maybe just kind of talk a little bit about the thing that kind of excites you most about the future of Ethereum and the crypto world, and then kind of the thing you're the most worried about.
Well, let me start with what I'm most worried about, and I really don't think it's something to worry about, but I am worried that the ETH2 transition either doesn't happen or does it in a disappointing way. I think that would be devastating to the Ethereum community. So I just want to make sure and say that I'm new to the community, and it needs to move in that direction, and I'm sure it will. But I just say I am worried about that. On the positive side, I am so impressed with the intelligence in this community, the smiles on everyone's faces. Everyone's coming at it for the joyful. Maybe it's ETH Denver. I haven't been to any of the other ones, but this one is filled with smiling faces. Buffy, what do you think? Yeah, no, I'm very excited, and I think it's really about smart people doing good things, and I think you guys are just that. So thank you for having me today.